Ladies and gentlemen, welcome wrestling fans worldwide to Knoxville and the Great Smoky Mountains for the Ron Fuller Tennessee Studcast.
6 feet 9 inches tall, 265 pounds.
This historic podcast from one of the most respected and successful wrestlers and promoters will follow the footsteps of the largest and oldest wrestling family on the planet.
Listen to what I'm saying. That's right. Bring that camera in here a little bit closer.
Through 93 years and 4 generations.
The stud has arrived.
Old school or new fan, this unique broadcast will educate and captivate as Ron details decades of professional wrestling's growth with truly unforgettable stories.
I want those people out there at home to hear the stud.
Sit back and enjoy the ride with the Tennessee Stud.
The Tennessee Stud. You will learn that name. You will remember it.
And now,
the stud is here.
Hey everybody, welcome in once again. It's David Summers. It's another Studcast with the Tennessee Stud, Ron Fuller. It's the story of wrestling in America as told by the Stud, whose family started the profession 100 years ago. Let's step back into the ring, back into time, back into the Great Smoky Mountains where there ain't no hoss like the Tennessee Stud. Ron Fuller, what's going on, my friend Ron?
Oh, man, it's great. Beautiful day here. Nothing but blue sky. Leaves are all fantastic at this point. Man, it's just, wow. It's been a great experience. First time I've ever had the experience of fall in full bloom, so to speak. And that's what's out there right now. And I guess hopefully it's going to stay this way for maybe another 10 days or so. And but it's really beautiful up here in this part of the country.
Well, it's amazing to imagine something like that and the beautiful colors that you're enjoying. Here in Southeast Alabama, the leaves are still green except the ones on the ground, and they're a beautiful shade of brown, Ron.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's it.
It's cool, man. Yeah. We get all the colors up here, man. Bright reds and yellows and
yeah.
Oh wow, it's pretty amazing. It's really been beautiful and really been enjoying this fall.
Yeah, our leaves are brown. Did I mention that? Yeah, I think I did. Okay,
I think so. Yeah. Right. I wish I could help you out there, man.
Yeah,
I could sack up some of these colored ones, man. Maybe send it to you.
Let's start doing art projects. Okay, all right. So today's stud, Ron, is going to be really, really interesting. One of the most important main events in the history of Southeastern is the subject of this one today. You are facing off against the Mongolian Stomper. Gorgeous George Jr. is barred from the Coliseum. The Stomper risk his Southeastern belt. You risk your TV trophy, which is as tall as you are. The winner gets both. Then, beyond all that, the loser of the match is leaving Southeastern for a year. Is there something you want to tell us, Ron?
Well, it's a pretty strong main event, that's for sure. Got a lot of stipulations in it, and that bottom line there, man, about the loser having to leave Southeastern for a year, pretty much says it all. But on this card that we're going to be talking about in this Studcast today, there's another main event on it that has a heck of a lot at stake as well, and that's a Southeastern Tag Championship match. The championship is on the line, and Roy Lee Welch gets totally surprised on the TV and today with the fact that he has to basically put his hair up, and not just if he loses that they're going to cut his hair short, but they're going to shave his head. And, if he and Joe lose that match, he's going to come out of there as bald-headed as Joe.
Looking like Joe.
Yeah. So they're going to really look really something different.
Yeah.
So, the champions, Mr. Knoxville and Bob Orton Jr., all they're having to rest is their belts. So it's a hair versus belts match and a Southeastern title and TV trophy on the line, all of the trophies on the line. In the last main event, and the loser's going to be leaving Southeastern, and all this going to take place on the last Friday in October of 1977.
Wow. Okay, so that's a pretty great card. So we have not even heard who else is on it, other than the two main events that you mentioned. Before we head in that direction, I have a few things that have gotten my attention on Southeastern Rewind that I have to ask about. I grew up watching Gulf Coast wrestling in the 60s, Southeastern wrestling in the 70s, and then Continental Championship wrestling in the 80s. I had forgotten what a fantastic TV show Continental Wrestling was until you brought it back 36 years later on your Southeastern Rewind YouTube channel. Now, listen, I know you've only shown 2 episodes so far, but they're both really great, and I think they're kind of what it's all about. It really has to make you proud to be able to get these things out there again after all these years.
Oh, yeah. Well, it certainly does, Dave. I mean, and like I said, it's been 36 years since these were done and since I'd seen any of them. Gosh, I'd forgotten how impressive it was to see and hear thousands of fans on a regular TV show. Everybody else in the sport back in those days was still in the studio. And we were the first in wrestling. This was 1985 when this Continental shows were started being produced. We were the first in wrestling to leave the studio with traditionally about 200 fans and start recording in the same arena with thousands of it in attendance on a weekly basis. Same building every week. So this TV show also had one of the most admired and professional commentators in all of wrestling at that time, for sure, and for all time in my opinion, and that would be my good friend Gordon Soley.
Yeah.
So, and I'm really pleased, man, that with the quality of these shows. Oddly enough, they come from at least all these, as we're going to be showing. There's going to be a considerable number of these Continental shows in the order they were produced, and they're going to come from at least 6 different TV stations in 3 different states. And the quality of almost all of them is very good. But it's going to get even better after the first 6 or 8 of these shows because they come from a station that doesn't have as good a signal as the others that we're going to be using later on. So just like the USA TV shows that are already on the channel, these new Continental shows going to be in the exact order they were produced. And by watching them in that order, obviously fans can follow that extremely important storyline, man, that was in every wrestling show just about around the country. And it was kind of what made old school wrestling so great, to be honest with you, man.
Yeah, no doubt. Listen, there's already so much stuff on the Southeastern Rewind channel now. I'm kind of like a kid in a candy store. I can't stand it at all. And you keep adding great stuff, like the first stud story that you just got up there like last Saturday, I think it was. In these stud stories, which are going to be released every week, you're going to be talking about all types of subjects. The first series is all about your actual matches, some for the title, some not necessarily, but with 11 NWA World Champions, ranging from 1970 all the way up to 1988. The first one, the legendary Lou Thez, absolutely blew me away as we recorded it and talked about it. So much wrestling history wrapped up in that one. Every fan of every age should really hear that, Ron. It's really good stuff.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it, Dave. And I really enjoy doing these things. I was blessed, man, as a wrestler, to be born and to be able to wrestle in that golden age of the sport, which I really believe the 60s, 70s, and 80s was really the golden age of wrestling. And there were so many great NWA champions still active during that time frame. I was extremely lucky to have the opportunity to get in the squared circle with so many of these guys. And I'm going to tell their stories, their history as champs, my experiences I've had with these guys, not only in the ring, but outside the ring for a lot of them. And I'm going to take all 11 of them, one at a time, in the order in which they won the belt. So basically, my next stud story is going to cover the man that beat Lou Thez, because the first one was about Lou. And that man was from New Zealand. His name was Pat O'Connor. And Pat and I, oddly enough, man, were close friends, even though he was probably twice my age. And I was lucky enough to wrestle him in my own territory in 1975. So stud story number 2 is going to be up next Saturday. and I'll be adding a new one every Saturday. I'm going to go through all these 11, and I'm going to throw in some different stud stories and different subjects as we go along here.
That's cool. And see, I knew this whole Southeastern Rewind YouTube channel was going to be great, but as it grows, you're branching out in other directions, and I think that is what's going to make it successful. Live Studcast, live question and answer shows, USA TV shows, Continental Wrestling TV shows, new just released Studcast, available on the same day as they're released worldwide, Stud Stories, Southeastern Sweet Spots, and on and on and on. Don't miss all of this, fans. You got to check it out. Subscribe now on YouTube at Southeastern Rewind. Ring the bell, and we'll ring your bell every time something new is added. And it's not like you don't have enough going on, Ron. Your next Dinner with the Stud is only 2 weeks away. Wednesday, November 24th, the night before Thanksgiving. I can't believe we're getting so close. We're going to be talking about that later in the Studcast. Being busy is not something new for you. And speaking of something new, Stud, where are we riding today?
Well, last week on our Today's Training, we talked about how territories move talent around, in and out, and why. And this week, last week, we kind of used the Florida Territory and the Southeastern Territory as an example. But this week, let's take a look at talent again. But this time, I want to do it from a totally different angle. How do you improve business? By not moving talent, but by creating new storylines using the talent that you already have. That's what great bookers were able to do. And by, they would do something that shocked everybody, that just lit up business. So in this Today's Training, we're going to do something a little different, Dave. We're going to go interactive with the fans on this one. We're going to play a little game with this Today's Training. And we're going to find out out there who's got booking skills, man. I got a lot of people that connect with me all the time. They ask these booking questions, and I'm going to give everybody an opportunity to get involved with us today.
All right.
So then we're going to discuss the card of October the 28th, 1977, back in the Coliseum again. And it has that great double main event we just talked about, opened up today's Studcast with. And then we're going to cover the rest of the card. The TV of October 22nd, 6 days before that event, and the results of the event and the attendance. And we got a great learning tree question about where did Bob Armstrong go when he lost the loser leaves Southeastern match on the big double world title card. And a lot of people probably are curious about something like that. Where do you go when you leave a territory?
I bet he doesn't just go home and sit there.
Well, I don't think he probably did.
Probably not.
He wasn't that tight.
He was a mover. All right, so I can already tell this is going to be another great one, Stud. I assume we are galloping into Today's Training.
That's surely where we're headed, my man.
All right.
And last week, we kind of compared the Southeastern Territory, as I mentioned a minute ago, to the Florida Territory, especially in how and why they move talent. This time, let's go to class for some different type of training today. The subject of this one will be improving business by creating an angle that utilizes your existing talent rather than moving someone and adding someone new. So this angle that was created in this time frame is going to be the question for those that want to play a little booking game with me, man. We're going to get back to this in just a moment, and I'll explain what I'm talking about. But the obvious reason for switching old and established talent in a shocking way, rather than bringing in someone that's totally new, is that new talent takes a long time to get them over. And, to the point to where they becoming stars in your territory, that takes a while to get there. And where they start to draw your money, it takes a little while to do that. So, most regular Studcast fans are now familiar with the wrestlers on every card for Southeastern in the fall of 1977. If you're listening regularly, you know that a lot of the same guys are still here. So when we get to announcing the entire card for October 28, 1977, which is going to be the one we're talking about today and focusing on in a few minutes, then you can make a note if you're out there listening and you want to play this game with me and you want to get interactive here, make a little note of who's on these cards and add them, other territories, and if you've somebody that you can think of that's in Southeastern that's not on TV, that's not on some of these cards, but you put their name in the hat too. And I'm going to add a few more recent newcomers for you just after we get to the card. So I'm not going to tell fans today who I was soon about to use in this way. I'm purposely going to be vague about it. I just want to play this little game. I want to see how many fans out there can figure out what's going to happen soon in Southeastern wrestling that's going to change things dramatically for Southeastern. So obviously something is going to happen. There's going to be a switch of somebody from babyface to heel or vice versa. It's going to involve other people, and it's going to create an entirely new direction for the company. So everybody out there listening, if you want to play along, I'm going to post a question about this on my social media sites after this Studcast is released. On all three of my Facebook sites, on my Ron Fuller Welch page, my Ron Fuller the Tennessee Stud page, and my author Ron Fuller page. And I'm going to post something on Twitter too. And at the end of this Studcast today, Dave, hopefully you'll be able to have time to give everybody these locations again and how to become friends on these sites if you aren't already friends with me. And on these sites, you're going to find my question post. And welcome to answer the question about who and what is going to happen soon that's going to change things in Southeastern.
You evidently must be feeling a little funky today, Ron. I don't know what's happening here. Are you looking for a new booker? Because I kind of like the idea of that. I think I'm going to take a shot at it. So when is this angle going to happen? It seems like all I've got to do is pick who is switching over and who it involves. So it's going to happen.
Yeah. It's going to happen within the next three Studcasts.
Okay.
All right. So it could happen on this one, or it could happen next week, or definitely by the third Studcast. And all you have to do out there is just tell me who you think is going to be switching, and are they going to switch from babyface to heel or heel to babyface, and who you think is going to also be involved when they make this move.
All right, so I don't think we've ever had an interactive Studcast like this one, Ron. This should be a lot of fun. So what is the entire card? October 28th, 1977.
Okay, on this one, you've got this newcomer. It's second match, Southeastern in Knoxville at least, and he's against Don Wright. You have a no time limit with Tony Charles versus the pro, Doug Gilbert. Ricky Gibson against the assassin. My brother Rob takes on Don Carson. There's that Southeastern Tag Championship hair versus belt match. Joe Leduc with partner Roy Lee Welch, who's got to put up his locks against the champions, Mr. Knoxville, Ronnie Garvin, of course, and Bob Orton Jr., managed by Al Costello. Then the Southeastern belt and the TV trophy are at stake. Whoever wins this big match is going to get both those. Gorgeous George Jr. is barred from the Coliseum. He will not be able to come to the building at all. And the loser of this match between the Stomper and I are going to have to leave Southeastern for a year. Southeastern champion, Mongolian Stomper, with no manager in his corner, is going to be facing the TV champion, myself.
You, Ron Fuller. All right. So if you think you're up for it, listen, it's a great card. Absolutely. You said you were going to add a few others in the territory to the list on this card for those fans that want to participate in your, I'll call it booking contest. What's up with that?
Okay. Well, I've got two other guys that have made appearances here in a couple of weeks, the last couple of shows, and they're not on all of them, but they're going to be. And one of them is named Thunderbolt Patterson.
Yeah, I knew that.
The other one is Irish Pat Barrett. And then, there are some other wrestlers that might be key to this that haven't wrestled on TV, haven't been involved in a while, that could rear their ugly heads again. So, I think it's going to be fun for fans. I hope they're going to enjoy it. We're going to be playing with it for the next couple of weeks, and we're going to see who's maybe the next great booker out there.
Okay, it's me. Nobody even worry about competing in this. All right, so I think we're ready for that TV Saturday, October 22nd, 1977, 6 days before this huge card in the Coliseum. So how did the TV show open?
Well, obviously it opened with Les, as usual, and a close-up, and he ran down the TV card. And this card's a pretty good card, so, normally I don't say what it is, but this card in the first match on the card is going to be the Southeastern Tag Champions, Mr. Knoxville and Bob Orton Jr., managed by Al Costello. Don Carson is going to be on the second match of the program. Stomper and Gigi, Gorgeous George Jr., his manager, are going to be on the profile. Tony Charles is on this program, and I'm going to be defending the TV trophy on the end of the show against not just a job guy, an enhancement talent, but against the pro, the guy that's used to flopping people around and ragdolling people. He's going to have his opportunity to become Southeastern television champion.
Right.
So, when the camera's backed away, man, there's this giant still shot on the set behind Les. What we do with just about every one of these openings. And it was Roy Lee Welch. He had his hand in the air because Big Joe Leduc had a hold of his arm and was putting it there. And down at the bottom of their feet was Bob Orton Jr. just laying there. So kind of an odd shot, but not for the fans. They loved it. The studio pop, man, the cameras backed away, and they picked up the fact that Joe and Roy Lee was sitting at the desk with Les. And those two guys were great friends, Joe Leduc and Roy Lee Welch, and an unbelievable combination. But they got a big face and grins on their faces because the night before, they won both their single matches against the tag champions, Mr. Knoxville and Bob Orton Jr.
Yeah.
And Les reminded them of the deal they made last week that Southeastern had made with them, that if they both won single matches, they were going to get another shot at the belts the following Friday night. So that meant that they're looking toward another shot the Friday night upcoming with the new champions, with the old champions that's been champions for a long time. Almost unbeatable at this point, Mr. Knoxville and Bob Orton Jr. Obviously, the fans responded with cheers. They loved this team, man. It was just amazing how the fans got into these two guys. So let's call for the video still shot to be backed up. And when it showed Roy. He had his abdominal stretch on Bob Orton Jr., and Orton reached out in the video, grabbed the referee by his shirt, and jerked him into Roy. They collided head first, Roy and the referee. Costello had his opportunity, man, and when he got it, he always took it. And with the referee down, he jumped into the ring, and he grabbed something out of his pocket, and Orton grabbed up Roy Lee in a full Nelson, man, and so Costello, Big Al, he's gonna take his best shot. And when he did, Roy ducked the punch, and Orton, man, took the third shot in 3 weeks from Costello.
Whoa.
and then when Orton went down, the ref was trying to get to his feet. All he did was crawled over there. Roy went on top of him, and he counted Orton out. And so they had one win down and one to go, man, to get that championship match the following week. Yeah, pretty easy victory, man, and they didn't show, but Orton and Costello had another problem again, and as usual, Mr. Knoxville, Ronnie Garvin had to come down and kind of settle it down again. Well, obviously the studio popped when they saw the end of it, and and they were they were a pretty loud studio group that day, and that building in Chilhowie Park, that's where this one was. It sounded loud in there as well. And then Joe's video ran next. Joe's sitting there. We've watched Roy's victory, and it showed that Joe ended up with a bear hug on Mr. Knoxville, And Costello, not thinking about what it was going to happen here, he just wanted to keep his man from getting beat right in the middle of the ring. He jumped in the ring and got disqualified. And what happened? Joe Leduc got his hand raised in victory. So there was another pop from the crowd in the studio, just like it was in the arena. So Leduc and Roy had earned that big title shot. But there was one stipulation to the match that neither one of them were aware of at this point. So Joe and Roy, they'd seen their matches. They got up. They were ready to leave the set. And Al Costello comes out to the set. And actually, there was only one way to leave the set and go back to the dressing room. And he came that direction and just kind of blocked them in there. And he asked Les, obviously, to hand him a microphone because he had something to say. But then he kind of backed off from the two guys that he was facing because Costello was no match for Joe Leduc or Roy at this point. He's got a little age on him. And he reminded, when he got the microphone, he started talking directly to them. And he reminded both of them of what he had said the Saturday before. And he did say the Saturday before that if they won their singles match, his champions would gladly give them a tag championship match, but there might be a little surprise in store for them. So, Joe and Roy at this point, they got out of their seats, and they backed Costello backed a little further away when he did, and he kind of screamed out nervously. Man, he was ready to run, basically. He was just hoping to get this out before they did something to him. And he kind of screamed to Les, and the people in the studio. Everybody at home could hear it. He's got a microphone in his hand. He screamed that the Southeastern officials had agreed to his request for a special stipulation and that the title shot would be given only if Roy Lee Welch would agree to put up his hair. And then he threw the microphone on the desk and he ran. So Joe Leduc, it's funny the difference in these two guys, and Joe Leduc's demeanor and Roy Lee's. And Joe went absolutely nuts. He charged that away from the set, and he went around the corner trying to catch Costello, I think. And Roy Lee just standing there. He's got this shocked look on his face. He doesn't know what to say. It's like, did he just say that I'm putting up my hair?
Right.
There's all kind of registering to him. They've been happy they're going to get this championship match, but they neither one knew this was the deal. So Leduc, man, he charged back into the set. I guess he couldn't catch Al. Yeah. And he started screaming at Les, and Roy just walked past him, went right to the dressing room. He didn't say a word to even Joe. He was out of it, and Joe was shouted at Les, who did this? Who's responsible for this? So, Les, he said, hey, I didn't know anything about it. It's the first I've heard of it. So about that same time, the Southeastern champions entered the studio and they went to the ring. And that obviously was Mr. Knoxville and Bob Orton Jr. And they were in the first match on the TV show, and pretty quick, the match was in progress. But Joe Leduc, he didn't leave the set. He wouldn't leave. And he was ranting and raving like a madman. And still screaming at Les, and meanwhile, they put in the ring, Knoxville and Bob Orton Jr. They're just destroying their guys. And they all had, they had just about won the match when Joe can't take it anymore. He sees what's going on. Roy's disappeared, and he can't stand it. So he just charges the ring, and there's three of them there. There's two wrestlers and Costello. All three of them, they just met him, man. He got to the apron of the ring, and they were all there. Come on in. And boy, knowing Big Joe, he went right on in too. And he looked pretty good for a short period of time. And then, they started to get him, and Roy came running. He realized that, the worst Joe, something's going on. And boy, it was like pandemonium in the studio, man. Bodies were just flying around everywhere. And pretty quick then, the champions and their manager never got a chance to get the victory, but they got out of the ring and they left. And Joe and Roy went back to the set. They had the first interview. And Roy was really trying to calm Joe down, which pretty hard to calm Joe Leduc down sometimes. He was a pretty volatile dude.
Yeah.
So, you know, he was right on the edge like a volcano all the time about erupting. So about that same time, the other three guys, they showed up over there in Studio B. So the champions started off in Studio B, and they got right away into the fact that the hair was part of this match. And if Leduc and Roy lost, Roy's hair was just the beginning. They said, you know, they're not just going to cut your hair, Roy Lee, but then they're going to bring in the razor and they're going to shave your head for you, you know, and y'all going to both look just like daddy and son or whatever, you know. So, you know, and then they just started laughing. They couldn't go any further. I guess the picture of that was just making them pretty giddy. And so, but not Joe. Joe went absolutely crazy again. He can't get to Studio B, but he's standing there and he's driving Les crazy. And he told Les, you know, there's absolutely no way he's going to allow Roy to put up his hair, he says, you know. And, you know, and then he says, if this guy's whole deal is that they want to do something, you know, that if he lost and he and Roy couldn't beat him, he says, and those idiots just want somebody to get hurt in some way by it. He said, I want to be the one that they hurt, by golly. And he goes, he says, if we lose, he says, I'll do anything. He said, he come up with, he says, I'll let Bob Orton Jr. put me in his backbreaker and drop me on my head, and then I'll let Mr. Knoxville jump off the top rope in my throat. He goes, but I'm not letting Roy risk a single hair on his head, not one single hair, you know. So it was pretty obvious to fans, which they already knew, that these two guys had deep feeling between the two of them, and that they were very different people, very different men. So Roy finally got a chance to speak after walking off and everything, and Joe's still wild and furious, but he kind of gets a hold of Joe, and he turned him around, and he hugged his neck, and you could hear him say on the microphone, I love you, Joe. I love you, Joe, you know. But then he asked Joe to calm down. He said, but calm down a minute. You know, he says, I want to say something. So he kind of got Joe kind of quiet, and people in the audience got a little bit quiet, and you know, and so then he asked Joe. Roy asked Joe. He says, "Do you think we can beat these guys?" And Joe said, "Yeah, of course we can." You know, He just started raging, and he said, "Wait a minute," and then he asked him another question. He says, "Joe," he said, "do you think they're ever going to give us another title match again if we don't do this one, if we don't take this shot?" And Joe shook his head like, "No, probably not, Roy. I got time to think of it." So Roy's really making some sense to him. He's getting him to calm a little bit, and then he had him calm down some, and the crowd started really listening intently to this conversation. It was a pretty good conversation. So Roy asked Joe again. He says, "Do you want to be Southeastern Tag Champion?" And Joe shook his head, yes. And so Roy asked him, he says, "And if we lose, Joe?" And he says, "And they cut my hair?" He says, "Will my hair grow back?"
All right.
And then Joe almost broke into a smile. He kind of almost laughed in a way, and he said, "Well, yeah, of course it will, Roy." And he goes, "Then what the hell is this all about, Joe?" He says, "You know," he says, "What are we talking about here? Why are you going nuts?" He goes, "Let's do this." He says, "Let's hurt them in the best way we can. Let's take their belts away, man." He says, "Let's be the next Southeastern champion." And boy, the studio exploded, man. You know, and Joe grabbed him and hugged him, man, you know, and they left the set, man, in a roar of applause.
That's funny. I mean, because Joe Leduc is the big-time superstar between these two, but here's Roy Lee getting the pop from the crowd and kind of leading the way on the promo and calming the big Joe Leduc down. And I don't know how long these two had known each other, but they were almost like a father and son team during this point.
Yeah. That's a good assessment of it, man. And that there was a lot of difference in their age for sure. And I could never explain the popularity of this team, but it was one of those combinations that just worked, man. For whatever reason, fans loved them, and this just made a better team. It got fans in the heart. It reached people in a place which is hard to reach in wrestling. People really got touched by the friendship and what was happening between those two guys.
Yeah, that's cool, and that's evident too. So, all right. So, what about the second segment of the show? What happens there?
Well, none other than another fan favorite, Don Carson, man, came out. So you can imagine what kind of welcome he got from the crowd, and he was met obviously with anything but respect. And he was in his fifth week back in Southeastern, and he had as much heat as anybody in the heel crew, man. And he was escorted to the ring by his now bosom buddy, the Assassin. I mean, these two guys had become inseparable, and they kind of used each other to build their heat off of, man. So in Carson's match, he got his opponent finished. Basically, he had to pull him up off the mat, keep the referee from counting the 3 count. And when he pulled him up, he threw him out on the concrete. And then he drew the referee's attention, and the Assassin, gave the kid a headbutt like he needed another headbutt. And then he had to pick his body up because he was about unconscious, and just kind of rolled him into the ring so that Carson could go over and cover him, man, and finally end it. And this pair, man, they kind of left every opponent they were wrestling with in this same state, and many of them had to be left and helped from the ring. It wasn't uncommon for guys to get hurt by these two. So they went to set after the victory, and the following Friday, Carson was wrestling against my brother Rob, and the Assassin was against Ricky Gibson, and Robert and Ricky were in Studio B. So they opened the interview. Robert and Carson weren't strangers in the ring, man. In fact, they had wrestled each other just 2 weeks prior to this particular match that's upcoming. And Ricky, in my opinion, had one of the more dangerous of the two, the Assassin. Both baby faces got the studio highly involved in the interview because they were really over as baby faces. Carson and the Assassin, they kind of ignored the comments that Rob and Ricky made. And instead, they went back to the subject of the match that had set them on fire a month earlier. And that was that second lights out match on the big championship night, the one that took both of them together to beat and send one of Southeastern's most popular wrestlers, Bob Armstrong, out of the territory. And they reminded fans and less of that match. And they again brought up their future plans that they had mentioned a couple of times before lately, their plans to take over Southeastern. And they were going to do it by sending other fan favorites out of that part of the country. And then again, they ended the interview with that same little mysterious threat of having already made a deal with the devil, man. And they knew they were going to be able to get it done.
Well, it seems like, I mean, they're a pretty scary pair, Ron, especially the Assassin. This constant deal with the devil threat that they do, it kind of fits them pretty well. I think we're getting close to a break. I'll tell you what, when we return, the Mongolian Stomper and Gorgeous George on the personality profile. That's coming up, but a quick reminder to find Southeastern Rewind on YouTube. Subscribe, ring the bell to get reminders on when the greatest stories in wrestling will be dropped on YouTube. And be sure to tell your friends about Southeastern Rewind. We'll be back. The personality profile is on this Studcast in only moments. Okay, we're inside the break on another Studcast, another awesome Studcast. And hey, Stud, I've still got you on the line, so I'm going to let you help me with our commercial in the middle right here because it's about Dinner with a Stud. November 24th, that's a Wednesday. It's the night before Thanksgiving, 7 to 9. This is going to be a big time for all Studcast fans.
Yeah, and I don't think I've ever done one of these, Dave, and been on here during the break. But I just wanted to say something personally to people out there, those that came for this first one. And we had more than 70 people for the first one. Almost filled up the top floor of that restaurant. And gosh, it was such a great evening for me. And for all those fans too. I was really, the food was fantastic. Everybody loved the Studcast. They liked the question and answers. The door prizes were absolutely phenomenal. Just some stuff that would cost hundreds of dollars. I was amazed. And we got Cherokee Distributing. That's the Miller Beer people in the Knoxville area. They brought down some fantastic stuff. Les gave away some great memorabilia. It was just a really fun evening. We spent a lot of time with everybody that came through the door, not just saying hello to them, but getting the names and talking to them. And then once the show was over, I did not think about this being the case, but probably as many as 50 people stayed after it was over. We got an opportunity, me, Les, and then this time it's going to be Jimmy Golden, are going to have the opportunity to not only autograph things for fans, sell them. They have souvenirs there so that they can buy T-shirts or photographs. Whatever it may be, we'll autograph those things for them. It just turned out to be, to me, one of the most remarkable evenings that I ever had in all of my times in sports, hockey or wrestling. It was really fun. I think fans really enjoyed it. And I just, if you're in the Knoxville area, it's a beautiful time to come. It's the night before Thanksgiving, and it's a great time to celebrate everything. And the fact that we can all go out, Dave, to be honest with you, because of COVID and things, that situation is all behind us. And I just I want to welcome everybody that in the Knoxville area to come on down, have a great evening with me, with Les Thatcher, and with Jimmy Golden, and it's just it's a great experience for me, everybody else, and it's only $30, pretty remarkable value. You can get that at tnstud.com. Go to the Stud store, just look for Dinner with the Stud, and reserve now because tickets are going to probably be gone for this one if you hesitate for too long. And thank everybody for your support, and especially those that came last time. And I look forward to meeting a lot of new fans this one.
Hey, absolutely. Listen, if you thought Dr. Tom Pritchard was a lot of fun and was a great storyteller, wait till you see Bunkhouse Buck, Jimmy Golden. This is going to be a big time. And let me mention once again, reservations only $30 at tnstud.com. Click the Stud store, look for Dinner with the Stud, and the photos alone that you're going to get are a $30 value. Don't miss it, and listen for more information on these Studcasts. Once again, the date is Wednesday, November 24th, 7 to 9 p.m., the night before Thanksgiving, Dinner with the Stud. Hey, everybody, welcome back. David Summers and the Tennessee Stud, segment 2 on another incredible Studcast. Okay, Stud, my guess is with that upcoming Loser Leaves Southeastern match, Gorgeous George Jr. will have a lot to say in this upcoming personality profile.
Well, he was never at a loss for words anyway, so he's always had plenty to say when he's on the show. And this time he was all totally focused on me. And when this personality profile opens up, his Stomper is behind him. standing behind Gorgeous George because Les and Gorgeous George were seated. And Stomper looked, more impressive than usual, I thought, being in the studio up top in the control room. And he was cranking away, man, on that steel truck shock, and he was sweating like he'd been cranking that thing for hours. He was just, and wasn't wrestling. He was just doing what he did. He was in phenomenal shape. So Gorgeous George and Les, they watched the video of the match from the night before, where Ricky Gibson got his chance at the Stomper Southeastern title. And I had watched the match from the balcony in the old Jacobs building in Chilhowee Park. It was upstairs. We're looking down on the ring. And I watched, because Ricky had helped save me from injury the week before, I felt like I owed it to him to just make sure that he didn't get a raw deal here. And as usual, Gigi got involved at the end of the match, and both he and the Stomper were taking advantage of Ricky. They were beating the heck out of Ricky, to be honest with you. Referee was down. And I ran from the upstairs down to the ring. And I reached out and grabbed the pants leg of Gigi. He wore these flowery outfits all the time. And
What?
And 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 he had a little hat that matched his flowery outfits. I never knew why he dressed like that, but I reached and I was able to get his pants leg, and I started dragging him out of the ring. And first he fought it, but then his pants were coming off.
Oh my
He had to quit fighting it, so I drug him out. And as Gigi described this, now he's watching and he's describing the action about, Ron Fuller's got no business being there anyway. And then he's saying, and look at me, he goes, I'm being manhandled by a brutal beast, he called me,
Yeah.
And he said, he was right in a way, because I did smack him around a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was dragging him through the building, and gosh, the building was packed. I mean, there was no room to hardly stand in there. And I was dragging him. I was going to take him, and I did take him all the way upstairs to where the dressing room, the Stomper and his dressing room was.
Mm-hmm.
And then the video showed between me and what was happening with George, they were going back to the ring, and they showed the Stomper finally beat Ricky Gibson. And then they took the last shot was of me. I got up to the dressing room door, and I didn't take the time to open it. I just threw Gigi through the dressing room door. And maybe I was a little bit of a beast, So, and Gigi's watching it, boy. And at that point, when he saw that, he really went off, And he told Les that I hurt his shoulder really bad, throwing him through the dressing room door like that, and that he'd had enough of Ron Fuller. I'm finished with Ron Fuller. And he said, in fact, he said immediately after this happened, he said, I demanded that the Southeastern officials come to the dressing room, and I told them I wanted to sign a historic match in Southeastern wrestling, He said, I want to put my Stomper's beloved belt up, and I want that Ron Fuller to put up his TV trophy, and the winner's going to get both of the titles, and the loser of a match is going to be gone from Southeastern wrestling. And he said, he told Les, he said, I'm absolutely sure I'm never going to have my hands, have Ron Fuller's hands put on me again.
I mean, can a man be left alone who looks like a shower curtain? I mean, what is the problem, Ron?
That really kind of describes his outfits.
Yeah,
he kind of did look like he was wearing a shower curtain.
Yeah, a shower curtain in a beach house. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Anyway, he was upset. He was really mad. He was cranked. He did, and then he said, I even told him I would let them bar me from the Coliseum. Next week's match is in the Coliseum. He says, I won't even come to the building. So, then Les stopped him, and he goes, hey, wait a minute now. He goes, you barred yourself from the Coliseum, and he says, how do you think that's going to affect your Stomper? I mean, he has a hard problem with his ears and stuff anyway, And then he told Les, he says, I don't care. I don't give a damn. I believe he said damn, and they had to bleep it. He said, I don't give a damn. He says, my Stomper can beat any man alive. And he says, I'll be there with him in spirit. That's all he needs to know is I'm there in spirit. So, studio crowd, they have harassed him, man, from the beginning of this profile to the very end. Stomper, a couple of times had to stop and grab his ears. It got to be too much for him. Mm-hmm. And there was no doubt, man, this match was going to have a huge impact on the future of Southeastern.
Bunch of hillbillies in that crowd, just jealous the way Gorgeous George was dressed. That's all it is. Okay, obviously, 6 days later, this was going to be a huge night for Southeastern. So who was in the next segment?
Well, the next segment had Tony Charles in it, man. And wow, as always, man, the studio went crazy as soon as they saw Tony. And he was so over, man, from that match he had with Nelson Royal 2 weeks earlier, in which he put him in that torture rack for a solid minute at the end of it, and should have probably been the world champion. If he'd had 30 seconds more, there was no doubt Nelson couldn't have took it for another 30 seconds. And Tony just wowed him again in the studio, man. He just used these beautiful throws one after another. Wow, he was just phenomenal. And then he went to the set after another win. And his opponent for the following Friday night was the pro, Doug Gilbert. He was in Studio B. And they had a time limit draw in the night before. And it was unusual for Tony not to finish his opponent before the bell, man. He did not like to have time limit matches, time limit draws. So he had them add a no time limit to this particular match so that he's going to have enough time to beat him, And there was this third straight week that these two guys had wrestled against each other. So, and you could tell there was some growing animosity between them. That's for damn sure. And then it was time for my defense, the last match. I brought out the beautiful TV trophy, which was really a phenomenal trophy. Wow. It was something else. Like you said, it was about as tall as I was. It was a huge trophy. And I hadn't defended it in a while because we had so much talent, and trying to get guys on TV and trying to get them over, it just gave us less time for these type of championship matches. So this match, like I said a little bit earlier, was with a quality opponent, man, a guy that had just interviewed in the interview before, and that was the pro. So I brought out the huge TV championship trophy, and the pro was already in the ring, and I set the trophy down on the apron. And then I got up on the apron, and when I was crawling through the ropes, getting over inside the ring, the pro reached over the top rope, and he lifted up the trophy over into the ring. Kind of like, this is mine, and I didn't know what he was planning on doing with it. I thought he might just take it and destroy it, just to slam it into the mat and the pieces go flying. So I kind of tapped him on the shoulder, and when he turned around, well, I don't know why he turned around, the dummy, I nailed him. I mean, what are you, stupid? Who you think's tapping you on the shoulder? So the referee grabbed the trophy, thank goodness, and kept it from breaking, and he handed over the top rope, gave it to Phil Rainey, who was the announcer, who was on the floor at this point. And boy, the fans were right into the match. I mean, they were into it immediately, man. It got a great start. And it just got to be better. The longer that match went, it just got to be better and better. Toward the end, everybody in the studio was on their feet. And the Stomper and Gigi, they came to the studio. They came into the studio. And when that happened, the crowd was already up. They just got even more serious about what was about to happen. And then Tony Charles came into the studio from another entrance. And the sound in that studio was amazing. It was like we were in a small building, man. Wow, it was just unbelievable. And Pro made this big mistake. Tony Charles got there. Pro saw him, and then Pro took his eyes off of me, and he focused on Tony. And I was able to just shoot around behind him. I graped behind his right leg, and I rolled him into the Fuller leg lock, and the rest was history, man. He did what everybody did. He gave up as fast as he could. And the Stomper made a move toward the ring at that point, because I'm on my back, but Tony Charles did too, and Tony just kind of cut him off, and you couldn't hear yourself thinking there, man. The crowd was crazy. And the pro gave up, like I said, right away. Stomper and Gigi, they backed off. Tony Charles came up into the ring, raised my hand, and the pro was last seen hobbling to the dressing room. So the last interview basically set the stage for what would become 6 nights later one of the wildest and maybe most important matches in Southeastern history to that point. Everything was at stake in this match. Stomper's title, my TV title, whoever lost was going to be exiting one of the hottest territories in the world.
All right, so another great TV. So everything now points to the Coliseum 6 days later. What's up there?
Well, Ronald Pope, who is making his second appearance, got his second straight win, and he beat Don Wright. Pretty good opponent. Tony Charles beat the pro. The Assassin won his match over Ricky Gibson. Robert won, but it was by disqualification. Carson got caught trying to load his glove and, got disqualified. And then in this Southeastern Tag Championship match, the belts against Roy Lee's hair, fans were treated to something special, man. They had a tremendous match. And they had been having great matches, these four. But this one was really, really amazing. And there's a lot more at stake, obviously. And they had Roy in trouble. And they almost pinned him 6 or 8 times. He kicked out. He just would not get beat. And he just kept kicking out again and again. So then finally, Joe saw, I think, that Roy was not going to be able to continue it. He was going to get pinned there. He was going to give up at some point here. And Joe just came into the ring, and he made a comeback against both of those guys. Even though he wasn't tagged legally into the ring, it didn't make him any difference. He's like, I'm going to take care of this. And he went in, he grabbed Mr. Knoxville, and he threw him through the ropes to the outside of the ring. He put the bear hug on Orton, and he finally dropped Orton in the middle of the ring. And then he went over and got Roy, drug him over and put him on top for the pin. So, and the referee obviously wouldn't count him out because, he's lucky he didn't stop the match. So the referee was trying to get him out of the ring, and while he was doing that, Roy's laying on top of Orton, and Mr. Knoxville climbed up on the top rope, man, and he was set to do his patented coup de grace, man, that big knee drop, and Roy's back off the top rope. And
wow,
when Garvin left that top rope, Roy must have had his head turned that direction. He saw it, and he rolled off, and Mr. Knoxville landed right in the middle of Bob Orton's chest.
Whoa.
and then Mr. Knoxville, he went running toward the far side of the ring. It was like, oh my God, what have I done here? And then Roy just rolled back on top. Mr. Knoxville started to try to make the save, but Joe Leduc slid through the ropes and grabbed his feet and held him. And he was just inches away from being able to drag Roy Lee off of him, but the referee counted 3, and that building exploded, man.
Oh, I bet. Wow.
So that long run of Mr. Knoxville and Bob Orton Jr., Southeastern Tag Champions, it finally came to an end, man. They had a phenomenal run as champions. And then we had one match left, man. That was my match against the Stomper. All this stuff involved. Last match, basically, it was everything, man. I think that fans expected. And to be honest, we probably a lot more than what they expected. So the Southeastern belt was on the line. The TV trophy was on the line. There was no Gorgeous George in the building, anywhere to be seen. The announcement was made that the loser of this match would leave Southeastern for no less than 1 year. And so the crowd was so loud in the match that it made it difficult for Stomper to be able to. He could not continue to pound on me or to do what he wanted to do because he was constantly trying to cover his ears. And wow, I was appreciating that. The fact that the crowd was so into it, and it was loud in that building. And, it's around the 30-minute mark. I had him beat. I think I was really going to finish him. And he grabbed me and he fired me into the referee on purpose. And the referee went through the ropes and took a horrible bump out on the concrete. I didn't go down. I went down on one knee, but the referee got a lot worse shot out of it than I did. And then the Stomper picked me up, and he went for a slam. I dropped in behind him. I put the Fuller leg lock on him right in the middle of the ring. The building shook, man, from the roar of the crowd. Wow, it's unbelievable. But there's no referee.
Oh,
I got him. But there's nobody to stop it, to raise my hand. So the referee's still down outside the ring. And guess who shows up, man, down at the ring? Don Carson and the Assassin.
My first guess was going to be Don Carson.
Don Carson and
the Assassin. Okay.
Both
yeah.
Both of them.
Okay.
Now, I'm laying there helpless. I'm on my back. I got the hold on Stomper, but I'm helpless. My legs are tied up in his, and I can't get up. And they just came right on the ring. Referee's laying out there on the concrete, and they just started stomping and kicked me right off. And Don Carson grabbed me from behind, and the assassin went to headbutt me, And when he went for the headbutt, Don's head was right behind mine. I just dropped my arms, straightened my arms out, and fell right on my butt. And the assassin head-butted Don Carson.
Whoa.
And when he hit him so hard that Carson shot backwards, and the referee was coming up to get back into the ring where Carson was going out. And Carson collided with the referee then. The referee had already had a collision with me. This time, Carson, flying out of the ring backwards, hits the referee who's coming in and sends the referee back out into the floor. And then Carson went through the ropes, too, and actually landed on top of the referee. And so both of them now are on the Coliseum floor. So, I got the Stompers down. He's still hurt from the leg. And so I did what only thing I could do. I tore into the assassin. I got to get something done here, man. I'm dealing now with 3 guys.
Yeah.
So I tore into the assassin, and boy, there was pandemonium in that building, man. And then a Stomper came from behind. He stopped me, and he hooked me in a full Nelson. And this time, the assassin went further than the last time. He reached in his pants. He wasn't even dressed in his wrestling outfit. He had regular pants on, and he pulled out something and he loaded his mask. And he was intent on finishing me, man. And when he came for the headbutt, I ducked again, and Stomper got this one. So Stomper went flying, man. The building exploded again, and again I tore into the assassin, and I put the Fuller leg lock on him. And now the building was on fire. The referee was trying to get back into the ring again. Carson saw him. Carson's out there. He dragged him off the apron, and he just shot him face first across the Coliseum floor. And then Carson re-entered the ring, and he loaded his glove. I got my hold on the assassin, and I never saw Carson coming, man. He nailed me, and I was down on my back and helpless anyway, and that did it. He rolled the assassin out of the ring. He pulled me into the center of the ring. He dragged the Stomper over, put the Stomper on top of me, and he left the ring. Collected up his limping friend. And those 2 guys, they were pretty smart, because obviously that crowd was going to kill him. And they did exactly what they had done on the Bob Armstrong deal earlier. They found that secret hidden door into the Heels dressing room without having to get to the back of the building. And they escaped through that same place that they did on the night that they screwed Bob Armstrong. The referee called back in the ring, and he counted me out. Needless to say, every cop in the building came to ringside. They were prepared. They saw it happening. And they somehow managed to get the Stomper back to the dressing room.
Wow. That is absolutely one of the wildest matches I ever heard of, Stud. So Don Carson and the Assassin had made good on that statement that they were going to send other big stars out of Southeastern, evidently.
Yeah. And that's what they had said for the last 2 or 3 Saturdays on TV, that they were going to take over Southeastern. They were going to eliminate some of the good guys. They'd already done it. I mean, Bob Armstrong was gone. They had already managed to do that, and they did everything they said they was going to do. I was gone from that Southeastern, and I was gone from Knoxville, from wrestling in Knoxville for the first time in 3 years, since the day I arrived and since the beginning of Southeastern. And I was supposed to be gone for a year.
Wow. Okay, so the attendance had to be phenomenal that night.
Well, it was just under 6,000, man. I think it was 5,900.
Mm-hmm.
And 5,900 is one of the biggest crowds in there. A lot at stake. So 5,900 people, and it sounded like 20,000.
Wow. Okay, that was pretty close to a sellout, obviously. And it was not a world championship card. Okay, Ron, so we have time for another learning tree question. Austin Dunlap asked, where did Bob Armstrong go when he lost the loser leaves Southeastern match on the double world title card? And that was, just a few weeks ago?
Yeah, that was about 3 weeks earlier than this particular night. Actually, it was on October 7th, 1977. This match was on October 28th.
Yeah.
And, we just spoke about that match, as a matter of fact, how the same two guys escaped after knocking Bob Armstrong out of Southeastern. They put me out. So I had a chance to do some research on this, on this particular question. And I called my good friend, man, and a guy I think is one of the great Florida wrestling historians of all time, Barry Rose. Because I assumed Bob would have gone back to Florida. And I didn't really know where Bob went when he lost this Southeastern, loser leaves Southeastern match. And so it wouldn't be long from October until the winter. And a lot of great wrestlers, as Bob was, and he could go anywhere he wanted to head to Florida, wintertime. And so I just kind of thought, that would be where he went. But then Barry and I talked, and Barry said, Ron, Bob, after 1974, he says, Bob never came back and had a long run in Florida territory ever again after that. And I thought, man, geez, that's kind of strange. And then it hit me that Bob Armstrong in the next year is going to become a part owner with me in Southeastern. So Bob never had a reason to go back to Florida for any length of time. So Mr. Dunlap, I think that's the gentleman's name that asked the question. That was real good news for me and for Southeastern. So, along with the great talent that we were assimilating in Southeastern, Archie Goldie, man, the Mongolian Stomper, Ronnie Garvin had been there a long run. Don Carson had been there a long run. Bob Armstrong had become an integral part of the company. And we had some great, steady talent, guys that weren't wanting to leave, guys that wanted to stay forever. So we were going to land a lot more talent in the future, that's for sure. But for a territory only in business for 3 years, that's what we are at this point in October of 1977. We've been in business for 3 years. Our talent base was as good as anybody in the countries. So a little more research had me, found out that Bob had gone home to the Georgia territory, which made sense. He'd been a long time in Southeastern at this point. He'd been driving back and forth from Atlanta, going up as far and way into northern Kentucky. I mean, it was pretty hard on him. So, along with the Florida territory, that Georgia territory was one of the best. So but it really made me proud, man, to know, as the smallest territory in wrestling in 1977, we were, and as so far as the size of the territory in miles, from one side north to south, east to west, we were the smallest territory in wrestling in 1977. And we were doing good enough business to not only attract, but to keep some of the best wrestlers in the world. So we were, at this point, not going to be the smallest for much longer, though. So things were about to change big time for Southeastern wrestling.
Wow. There you go. Another amazing Studcast. And folks, don't miss the Dinner with the Stud, Wednesday, November 24th, 7 to 9 p.m., the night before Thanksgiving. It is a great time to visit the Smoky Mountains for a vacation, have an unforgettable evening with Ron, Les Thatcher, WCW's Bunkhouse Buck, also known as Jimmy Golden. Experience a great buffet dinner at one of the world's finest restaurants, Calhoun's on the River, located on the Tennessee River right next to the University of Tennessee in downtown Knoxville. You're going to get the free dinner, 2 free 8x10 photos of the Stud and Jimmy Golden, a 1-hour live Studcast plus 1-hour question and answer show, great door prices. You'll enjoy a cash bar and meet all 3 stars on the way in. Reservations only $30 at tnstud.com. That's tnstud.com. Click the Stud store. Look for the Dinner with the Stud banner. The photos alone are a $30 value. The last dinner was fantastic and almost full. You had a great crowd. Reserve your seat now for this tremendous evening and get your Thanksgiving off to a great start. You'll definitely have something to talk about when folks come over for Thanksgiving. For those wanting to get involved with our Today's Training booking contest, here's where to look for Ron's post about your answer to who will turn and what's going to happen within the next 3 episodes that will change Southeastern. So, on Facebook, all 3 pages, Ron Fuller Welch, Ron Fuller, the Tennessee Stud, and author Ron Fuller Welch will have posts. You'll see it, everything right there. If you're not already a friend with Ron, you can go to either the Ron Fuller, the Tennessee Stud page or author Ron Fuller Welch page. Like and follow him there, and you automatically become friends with a legend. Then, good luck with the contest, too. On Twitter, follow him at Ron Fuller Welch. He'll also be posting on Twitter after the show as well, so that's another way to stay in touch. Get your Christmas gifts from the Stud store this year. tnstud.com, click Stud store. Autograph photos, T-shirts, Tennessee Stud mask, great DVD 5-packs with 62 matches, 12 hours of classic Continental video action, Ron's brilliant Brutus novel, even autographed, and much more, all at tnstud.com. All right, that's a lot, Ron. I don't see how you keep up with it all. So where do we ride next week?
Well, we're going to return, man, to our booking contest in Today's Training. Next week again, we're going to go back to this same topic. We're going to take another look at everything going on and see who can be the first out there to answer my question about who's going to soon turn, either babyface or heel, and who's going to be impacted by that turn. I'm really looking forward to this. I think fans are going to be intrigued by this because there's a lot going to be happening in the next 3 Studcasts, in the next 2. We've just about finished this one, Dave, so we're 2 more Studcasts. They're going to have their answer. So we move into November of 1977. Another great card. Going to happen next week with something crazy happening the next 2 Studcasts in a row, as a matter of fact. Big things. Big TV, results of the card, and we'll talk about the attendance for this next one. We'll also have some news on where I am after I leave Southeastern. Where do I go? I mean, we found out where Bob went. We're going to find out where I'm going to be going. And then the learning tree question next week, ask how were the smaller Southeastern cities doing, considering Knoxville was becoming one of the best wrestling cities in America in 1977? A great question. We don't talk about it a whole lot, but Knoxville was rocking, and I guess this questioner wants to know what's happening in these smaller cities. So I want to thank everyone, as always, for your support in both the Studcast and in the new Southeastern Rewind YouTube channel. I really appreciate it. Please subscribe there if you haven't. And I think you'll find some type of entertainment there that you're going to really enjoy. And Studcast fans, you've been here for years now at this point. And I never want to forget to thank you. And I really thank all of you for being fans. Please tell your friends about us. Obviously, take care of yourselves and others, and may God bless us all.
Well done, Stud. For Ron Fuller in the Great Smoky Mountains, I'm David Summers saying thank you for listening. Find me at davidsummersproductions@gmail.com. This Studcast is a David Summers production for Tennessee Stud, LLC.
Thanks for joining us today for this historic Studcast. The true story continues next week. So full Nelson your friends and point them in our direction for another ride with the Tennessee Stud.
1, 2, 3.
This is David Summers saying so long from the Great Smoky Mountains.